Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
The slide is visible or not? Slide visible. Visible now?
No, sir.
No,
Oh.
sir.
Okay, let me share once again. Okay. Your entire screen. Visible or not now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we'll start. Today we'll have a short discussion. Okay, today's topic is circulatory shock. Okay, or we can simply call it shock also. Okay, but there are other shock also, like emotional shock is also there, which is totally different from this circulatory shock. Okay, circulatory shock, or simply we can call it shock also. Okay, what is this? Okay, it is a serious life-threatening condition where insufficient blood flow reaches the body's tissue. Okay, what is point number one here? It is a serious condition. Okay, just excuse me. Okay, so shock point number one is it is a serious condition. Okay, it is a serious condition, life-threatening. Okay, it can lead to death. Okay, so it is a condition, serious condition, which can lead to death. Okay, now what is happening during shock? Okay, what is the cause of this shock? It is insufficient blood flow to the body tissues. Okay, so blood flow to the tissues or organs, it is insufficient or not sufficient to normalize the metabolism in that tissue or in that organ. Okay, so we can simply say, in short, there is insufficient blood flow to the tissues or the organs. Okay, so shock occurs due to inadequate substrate for aerobic cellular respiration. Okay, why there is shock is that there is low blood supply to that particular organ or tissue. Okay, you already know that blood supply is low to that tissue. If there is low blood supply to that tissue, ultimately that tissue will receive inadequate nutrients or substrates. Okay, low blood supply means low supply of oxygen to that organ or other nutrients to that organ. Okay, so there is inadequate supply of nutrients or substrate for aerobic cellular respiration. Okay, so aerobic cellular respiration is very important. Otherwise, there will be problem. Aerobic means in presence of oxygen. Okay, so we have to remember that in shock, there is inadequate supply of nutrients or substrate to that particular tissue. This is due to, we can say, low blood flow to that area. Okay, so what is the next point? As blood carries oxygen and nutrients around the body, reduced blood flow hinders the delivery of these components to the tissues. So just now I have already told you there is inadequate blood flow. Inadequate blood flow means there will be inadequate oxygen and nutrient in that blood, because inadequate blood, they reach that tissue. Okay, inadequate blood volume. That means there will be low availability of oxygen and other nutrients to that organ also because of low blood flow. Okay, so when this is happening, when there is insufficient or stoppage of supply of nutrients, okay, this can stop the tissue from functioning properly. Okay, so it will disturb the metabolism of the tissue or organs. So now this point is important. Okay, in the early stages, okay, this is generally caused by an inadequate tissue level of oxygen. Okay, in the early stages of shock, okay, shock is, we can say, generally caused by inadequate tissue level of oxygen. Okay, so here we can take an example like this. Okay, without oxygen, you cannot survive for, let's say, if you don't breathe for half an hour. Okay, a person may be declared as dead. Okay, that means immediate supply of oxygen or constant supply of oxygen is necessary to make you alive. Okay, but if you see other nutrients such as glucose, protein, amino acids, okay, which we are getting from the food we have ingested, okay, you can survive without food, without this carbohydrate or other nutrients for many days also. Okay, but without oxygen, you cannot survive for even for 1 hour. Okay, so because of that, the earliest stage of shock will be manifested in the, let's say, manifested by inadequate tissue level of oxygen. Okay, you got my point or not? This slide, you have any question? Okay, now we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so another term comes here. This is the process of blood entering the tissue is called perfusion. Okay, when we talk about perfusion, okay, it is the process of blood entering the tissue. Okay, and another one here is that hypoperfusional state. When perfusion is not occurring properly, this is called a hypoperfusional state. Hypo, below normal level. Perfusional state means low supply of blood, or we can say the blood supply is below the optimal level. Okay, earlier also I have already told you that tissue, local blood flow, how local blood flow is controlled, we have already discussed. Okay, usually a tissue will regulate its own blood supply, which will be just sufficient to supply that organ. Okay, it will not be below the normal level, or it will not be above the normal level. So more or less it will be just sufficient. Okay, but when there is increased demand for blood supply for that particular organ, it may increase its blood supply. That one also I have already given you example. When you do exercise, blood flow to the skeletal muscle will be increased to many folds. Okay, and when you do the ingestion of the food also, okay, for digestion, your digestive tract is in need of more blood supply. So more blood will flow to the digestive tract. That is why I already told you that after taking lunch, okay, when we do offline, okay, after taking lunch, when you come to the class at 1 o'clock, you used to feel drowsy. Okay, this is mainly because of, what to say, the blood supply, it is, okay, centered to the digestive tract. More blood supply will be to the digestive tract. So less blood supply will be in your brain. So it will make you feel sleepy or drowsy. Okay, so this is one of the reasons. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, hypoperfusional state means low blood supply below the optimal level. Okay, now I already told you that this medical shock or circulatory shock, it should not be confused with the emotional shock, as the two are not related. So emotional shock also, we all know very well. Okay, when we come to know that some news, bad news, okay, so you may be in shock, that is emotional shock. You may be fainted or unconscious also. Okay, so this is totally different from this what we have discussed, circulatory shock. Okay, so as you know, shock is a life-threatening emergency and one of the most common causes of death for critically ill animals. Okay, so shock, it means circulatory shock. It is an emergency condition and one of the most common causes of death for critically ill animals. Okay, so proper supply of blood to every organ. Okay, it is very important, especially to the vital organs, brain, heart, kidney, liver, etc. Okay, so shock can have a variety of effects, all with similar outcomes. Okay, so shock may affect many things. Okay, it may be manifested in many ways. Okay, but the outcome will be similar. Okay, and all relate to a problem with the circulatory system. Okay, shock problem will always be related to circulatory system. Okay, okay, somebody has to mute their mic. Okay, okay, please mute the microphone. Okay. For example, shock may lead to hypoxia. Hypoxia, you know, a lack of oxygen in the body tissues or cardiac arrest. Okay, it will be many. It may have many effects, but the outcome will be similar. Okay, and it is all related to cardiovascular system because hypoxia means lack of oxygen in the body means maybe oxygen concentration in the blood is less. That is carried by circulatory system or the tissue is not receiving sufficient blood supply. Okay, ultimately oxygen supply to that organ will be or tissue will be decreased. Okay, cardiac arrest another one. There is stopping of the heart. So this is also related to the what to say cardiovascular system. Maybe coronary blood coronary artery. Okay, may lead to if it is decreased, it may lead to cardiac arrest. Okay, so that was the introductory part of shock. Now, what are the stages of shock, or we can call it mechanism of shock also? Okay, so there are 4 stages of shock. It is a complex and continuous condition. There is no sudden transition from one stage to the next. Okay, no sudden transition from one stage of shock to the next stage of the shock. So the first stage is initial stage. So during this stage, the hypoperfusional state causes hypoxia. So you already know that there is hypoperfusional state. That means low blood supply or low blood flow to a particular tissue. Okay, so you know very well that when there is hypoperfusion, ultimately hypoxia will be there in that tissue because low blood supply means low oxygen delivery to that organ. That means hypoxia. Okay, low oxygen concentration. So which will lead to, if there is deficiency of oxygen, it will lead to mitochondria being unable to produce adenosine triphosphate. So we know that oxygen, okay, oxygen is important for the synthesis of ATP in mitochondria. Okay, but there is, let's say, deficiency of oxygen, also hypoperfusion. Okay, so there will be lesser production of ATP. Or if the shock or if the perfusion, okay, hypoperfusional state is very severe, it may stop delivery of oxygen also. Okay, so ultimately ATP production will be stopped. So due to this lack of oxygen, cell membranes, they become, so there will be damage. Well, okay, let me see. Okay. No is there. I mean, no. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. So I'll repeat again. The first stage of shock is initial stage. As you know, shock means low blood supply to a particular tissue. Low blood supply means low oxygen supply to that organ or tissue. It means it will lead to hypoxia deficiency of oxygen or low oxygen concentration in the tissue. Okay, when there is oxygen deficiency, what will happen is that, as I told you, ATP production by mitochondria will be hampered. Okay, there will be decreased production of ATP. But if the deficiency of blood flow is severe, okay, or very severe, there may be stoppage of ATP production also. Okay, so due to this lack of oxygen, there is destruction of the cell membrane. Okay, and again, consequently, cell membrane become leaky. That means the cell membrane become leaky. That means because of damage of the cell membrane through extracellular fluid, and the cell perform anaerobic respiration. Okay, so cell is becoming leaky, so that movement of molecules from outside to the inside is possible. And the important point here is that there is activation of anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration we have already discussed when we talk about the muscle fatigue, just before muscle fatigue. Okay, when before we discuss muscle fatigue, we talk about aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Okay, so aerobic respiration or metabolism in presence of oxygen. Anaerobic means in the absence of oxygen. Okay, now the cell is now performing anaerobic respiration instead of aerobic respiration. Then this one also we have already discussed in muscle fatigue. Okay, when there is anaerobic respiration, it will lead to the end product will be lactic acid, etc., as well as pyruvic acid. Okay, so these are acid, you know that when they are accumulating in the body, they will lead to change in the pH. They will decrease the pH of the fluid and leading to systemic metabolic acidosis. That means increased concentration of acid in the body. Okay, now this lactic acid and pyruvic acid, okay, which are accumulating now because of anaerobic respiration, okay, they have to be removed. Okay, but here again, the process of removing these compounds from the cells by liver requires oxygen, which is absent. Actually, under normal condition, if there is production of lactic acid and pyruvic acid, okay, they will be removed by the liver. But you know that here we know there is absence of oxygen. That means you already know that hypoxia condition is there. Okay, so because of this, without this oxygen, liver cannot remove this lactic acid and pyruvic acid, and what will happen is that more accumulation of acidosis. Okay, so metabolic acidosis will take place in the first or initial stage of the shock. Okay, because of anaerobic respiration. Now, what is the second stage? Compensatory or compensating stage. That means there will be the body will try to compensate or try to reverse. We can say try to reverse the shock. Okay, this stage is characterized by body employing physiological mechanisms such as neural, hormonal, and biochemical mechanisms in an attempt to reverse the condition. Okay, so now initial stage has already taken place, acidosis is there. Okay, then the physiological mechanisms, okay, which says it may be that means nervous, involving the nervous system, maybe hormonal, involving endocrine system, or biochemical mechanisms, other biochemical reactions, okay, will be triggered or stimulated or activated, okay, in an attempt to reverse the condition. So many physiological mechanisms will be activated to reverse this condition. Mechanisms include the following. Okay, in compensating stage, number one, hyperventilation. Okay, so as a result of acidosis, in the initial stage, acidosis occurs. Okay, as a result of this acidosis, the animal will begin to hyperventilate. It is a state of being breathing faster or deeper than necessary in order to rid the body of carbon dioxide. Okay, here you know that metabolism of the body, it is causing this production of carbon dioxide. Okay, then you know that if there is no removal of carbon dioxide, this will be enhanced or it will increase in intensity. We say that the degree of acidosis will increase. We all know that carbon dioxide is acidic in nature. Okay, so it will make the tissue or body fluid more acidic if this is not removed. But the body mechanism to remove this is there is hyperventilation. If shock is there, a person or patient, okay, it will in that body there will be hyperventilation. Okay, the breathing may be faster, rate of respiration may be increased, or depth of the respiration may also be increased, or both, so that this carbon dioxide can be removed from the body. Okay, so you already know this one. Carbon dioxide directly acts to acidify the blood, and by removing it is the body is attempting to raise the pH of the blood. That you already know. When carbon dioxide combines with water, carbonic acid dissociated into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ions. And hydrogen ion, as you know, hydrogen ions is acid, which is a measurement of its concentration, is a measurement of the pH of the blood. Okay, you already know. So the first attempt, okay, to reverse the shock is hyperventilation. Number 2, increase in the blood pressure. So the blood pressure will try to increase to reverse the shock again. Okay, so you already know what are the receptors. These are the receptors, okay, which are present in the walls of the arteries. Okay, in the carotid arteries and in the aorta. Okay, carotid bodies, aortic bodies we have already discussed. So they are very sensitive to the changes in the blood pressure. Okay, so they detect these arteries, detect the resulting hypotension. Hypotension means low blood pressure. Okay, and cause the release of adrenaline and noradrenaline. Okay, so it means that when blood pressure is low, okay, when blood pressure is low, shock is there. Okay, blood flow is low. So the receptor which are present in the arteries, they will release adrenaline and noradrenaline. Okay, so what is now the function of noradrenaline? It causes predominantly vasoconstriction. It will lead to vasoconstriction with a mild increase in the heart rate. Okay, so the main function of noradrenaline is to constrict the blood vessel, to increase the BP, so that blood flow will be increased again. Okay, and another function of noradrenaline, it may slightly increase the heart rate also, but its main function is to vasoconstrict the blood vessels. What about the adrenaline? Adrenaline predominantly causes an increase in heart rate. Okay, unlike the noradrenaline, it will mainly increase the heart rate and small effect on the vasoconstriction. So although both noradrenaline and adrenaline increases heart rate and vasoconstriction, okay, but their predominant action, okay, it is different. Okay, so this combined effect, that is increase in the heart rate as well as increase in vasoconstriction or vasoconstriction, will result in increased blood pressure, so that blood will be flowing through peripheral tissue also, okay, because of the increase in the pressure. Okay, so that is another attempt to reverse shock, okay, to increase the blood pressure. So the third one, actually renin-angiotensin axis, it is taking time. This one also we have already discussed in detail. Okay, so renin-angiotensin axis is activated and arginine, vasopressin, or antidiuretic hormone is released to conserve fluid by kidney. So we all know very well what is the function of, important function of ADH, to conserve water, that we have already discussed. Okay. Also, these hormones, this cause vasoconstriction of the kidneys, GI tract, and other organs to divert the heart lungs and the brain. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, ADH important first we already know to conserve water, but the function of ADH is also through cause vasoconstriction in the organs like kidney, gastrointestinal tract, and other organs to divert blood to the heart, lungs, and the brain. Why these heart, lungs, and the brains? Why they are important? Okay, so during shock, these organs are very important. At least these organs like heart and lungs and brain, they should receive sufficient amount of blood so that they will not stop their function. Suppose there is shortage of function of the heart for a short period of time, that means the person will die. And regarding lungs also, we know very well that if breathing has stopped, okay, for some time, that means the person may be declared as dead. And again, brain is very important. Okay, so it means that these vital organs, although others, these kidneys and all also they are vital, but still their function can be, I would say, stopped for some time. Okay, so that those excess blood, okay, those blood which is supposed to supply kidney and GI tract, they may be diverted to the heart. Okay, they may be diverted to the heart. So this is caused by vasoconstriction of the kidneys, vasoconstriction of the vessels of the kidneys, gastrointestinal tract, and other organs. Okay, so that those, because of this constriction, blood will come out of this organ. So that those excess blood is coming out of this organ, they may be diverted to the heart, maybe and to the lungs and to the brain. Okay. A lack of blood to the renal system causes a characteristic low urine production. That means during shock, okay, blood is diverted from, let's say, kidney to the heart. Okay, so blood flow through the kidney, it will be decreased. So it will ultimately lead to low urine production. Okay, but here, however, it is written, however, the effects of renin-angiotensin axis take time, and are of little importance to the immediate homeostatic mediation of shock. Okay, so for immediate response, okay, to reverse shock, renin-angiotensin axis has little importance because it is taking time. But when there is a sudden shock, okay, that shock must be reversed immediately to keep the person or the patient alive. Okay, so earlier we have already discussed those: hyperventilation, increased blood pressure, and all. Okay, those are important for immediate response to shock. Okay, but renin-angiotensin axis is not useful for immediate response to the shock. Okay, because it is taking time. Okay. Now that is the compensatory stage. Now the third stage of shock is progressive or decompensating stage. Okay. If the cause of shock is not successfully treated, the shock will proceed to progressive stage and the compensatory mechanism begin to fail. Okay. So earlier we have discussed compensatory stage. Okay. If those mechanisms, physiological mechanisms fail to reverse what shock, okay, that means we can say that compensatory mechanism begin to fail. Okay, so after that what will happen is shock is not reversed, leakage of fluid and protein into the surrounding tissue. You already know that the cells are damaged, cell membrane are damaged, so there can be leakage of fluid from the cell as well as protein into the surrounding tissue fluid. As this fluid is lost, okay, the blood concentration and viscosity increase, causing slowing of the microcirculation. Okay, suppose if there is loss of blood vessels, okay, that means more fluid is coming out. Okay, and inside the blood will be more concentrated. Okay, that means viscosity will increase because of loss of fluid. Okay, and it will slow still circulation, microcirculation at the capillary level, let's say at the arterial level. Okay, at the mid arterial level. Okay, The prolonged vasoconstriction will also cause the vital organs to compromise to reduce perfusion. Okay, so now here the important point here is that if shock is not reversed in the compensating state, okay, more damage or more events will take place. The leakage of fluid and protein into the surrounding tissue, okay, from the blood vessel and as well as from the cell also, okay, and this will lead to loss of fluid. It will concentrate the blood more, okay, concentration. That means because of loss of the fluid. That means viscosity will be increased. Okay, very viscous, and this will lead to slowing of the circulation. You know that if the fluid is very thick, okay, it is very viscous. It is the flow, okay. The flow rate will be increased. If it is very diluted, flowing will be easier. So if you compare pure water and blood, okay, the viscosity, blood is very much more viscous. So that means it can flow through the blood vessel at a slower rate. If you compare with the pure water, okay, water will flow quickly. Okay, that means that will hinder again, reduce blood flow. Ultimately, blood supply to that organ will be decreased. Okay, to a greater extent. Okay. Now, the last stage of shock is refractory or irreversible stage. Okay, at this stage, the vital organs have failed, and the shock can no longer be reversed. Brain damage and cell that have occurred, that will occur imminently. Okay, so in the compensating stage, okay, the body is trying to reverse the shock, okay, by so many mechanisms. But still, if it is not possible, means ultimately, as you know that decompensating stage will be there, and in the last stage, okay, vital organs, okay, their function will be stopped, and damage to those vital organs will take place, and that will occur. Okay, here in the flow diagram we can see it. Suppose so the main cause of or we can say shock is inadequate perfusion, low blood supply to the organ, and low blood supply means low oxygen supply. Okay, so oxygen is transported by blood. Okay, so low oxygen supply means energy deficit. The decreased production of ATP, that I've already told you. For the production of ATP in the mitochondria, oxygen is necessary. So low ATP production, deficiency of energy is there. Okay, and then that will lead to, you already know, accumulation of lactic acid and falling pH, which is why we can say anaerobic metabolism, that I've already told you. Okay, so lactic acid accumulation means there is metabolic acidosis. Okay, and what will happen is that metabolic acidosis will lead to vasoconstriction and then failure of precapillary sphincter, and there will be peripheral blood. So another effect of metabolic acidosis is cell membrane function and failure of sodium pump. Okay, cell membrane dysfunction and failure of sodium pump, and there will be, when this is taking place, intracellular lysosome release digestive enzyme. You know that these lysosomes are containing all these enzymes which can damage the membrane also. Okay, so lysosome will damage the cell membrane, which will cause efflux of potassium. Potassium is high inside the cell, so they will move out of the cell. At the same time, influx of sodium and water from the outside, because outside sodium is very high. Okay, by diffusion now they can move, because cell membrane, they are damaged. Okay, then toxic substances enter circulation, capillary endothelium is damaged. Okay, and destruction, dysfunction, and cell death. Okay, now what are the types of shock? Okay, we'll just go quickly. Types of shock, now hypovolemic shock. Okay, this is the most common type of shock and based on insufficient circulating blood volume. Okay, when we say that there is hypovolemic shock, we can say that there is low blood volume. Hypovolemia, low blood volume. Hypervolemia, blood volume. Okay, hypovolemia means low blood volume. Hypovolemic shock means the shock is due to low circulating blood volume. Okay, process of it from the external between you are losing blood. Okay, internally maybe excessive bleeding and severe burns. Okay, so it may lose blood to the outside of the body. That may be excessive bleeding, or the person is suffering from severe burns. Okay, so ultimately fluid is lost from the circulation. That will lead to low circulating blood volume, and this is hypovolemic shock. What can we do for the treatment of hypovolemic shock? Bleeding is immediate control. So when we have bleeding, we try to stop it. Okay, by applying dates or tonic weight or even your hand. Okay, so that is very important. The stop of loss of blood will be minimized. And rest becomes victims blood by giving infusion of balanced solution. Infusion of solution is important. Blood transfusion are necessary for the loss of large amount of blood, example greater than 20% of the blood volume, but and avoided in small and slow losses. Okay, if the blood loss is big and if it is greater than 20%, blood transfusion is recommended. Okay, hypovolemic due to burns, diarrhea, vomiting, etc. is treated with infusion of electrolyte solution that balance nature of the fluid loss. So we all know that, especially in case of diarrhea, you should take an infusion electrolyte solutions. Okay, then you may take this oral electrolyte ORS, what we call ORS also. Okay, the second also is cardiac. It is related to okay. This type of shock is caused by the failure of the heart to pump effectively. That means there is problem in the heart itself. Cardiogenic shock, because the problem lies in the okay. There is failure of the heart to pump effectively. The pumping ability of the heart is decreased. This can be due to damage to the heart muscle, often cause myocardial infarction. So you already know we discussed the coronary circulation. If blood supply through the coronary circulation is low, that means there may be depth of some cardiac, which is known as myocardial infarctions. The what to say, muscle cells means what will happen is that those cannot contract. That pumping will be harmful. Others include arrhythmias means normal heart rate or
Yes, sir. किस्मत से आ गए सर।
Normal distribution of blood, the brain, heart, and the kidneys, although cardiac output is normal. Okay. This leakage also leads to leakage of fluid from capillaries into the surrounding tissue. That means there is again
क्या चल रहा है? कितना पड़ेगा बेचा? सो जा। बनाओ यहीं पे। ये हो क्या रहा है सर? है क्या? या निकल जाओ, क्लास खत्म। मैं तो हूँ, यही हूँ, क्लास पे हूँ। हाँ, घर पे आ गया। हाँ, कोविडशील्ड। कहाँ पे? पिछवाड़े पे। हाँ, तेरे कान पे। अरे भाई, लगता है बुखार आएगा, दर्द कर रहा है। मरना मत। ठीक है। फिर सर को क्या हुआ? निकल क्यों गए? ओ भाई, ठीक है, फिर निकल जाओ, क्लास खत्म क्या? ठीक है।
Thank you, thank you.
40 Hey Siba, Mr. Brazil. Hello, Mr. Brazil. Oh, once again, once again. वाह बेटे, मौज कर दी। ठीक है, तुम लोग मौज करो, मैं निकलता हूँ, क्लास नहीं होगा लगता है। 12 बज गए। हाँ, ठीक है भाई, टेक केयर।
सब नहीं चल बात जा